Reshaping Collections is very much a collaboration between the Chinese Canadian Museum and the Chung Collection. Dr. Wallace V. Chung is an important member of the Chinese Canadian community, a retired vascular surgeon, and a major collector. He collected a variety of really important historical artifacts, brochures and pamphlets, important records, over 25,000 objects, all related to Chinese Canadian history, donated to the University of British Columbia. This year marks the 25th anniversary of the Chung Collection. We decided to commission 6 Chinese Canadian artists from all across the country to take in a 3D scanner for the first time, printing these historical objects in order to create new creative works related to what they saw.
Coming closer to the object by deep observation.
What makes this collection so exciting, how thorough the collection is.
My initial impression, holy ground.
Snapping photos.
I can handle these. Objects that age, normally you see it under glass.
It made me want to take that much more care.
Oh wow, okay.
You kind of become a kid again.
Ooh. Oh my God, oh my gosh.
At the Chinese Canadian Museum, it's really important for us to interpret our history and our identity, joining both the contemporary as well as the historical, opening up the collection in new ways.
My name's Karen Tam. I'm a visual artist. I mostly do installations as well as sculptures, textile pieces, drawings. So it's a lot of stuff. What connects everything together is the issues that I'm really interested in. Diasporic Chinese histories, stories that have disappeared. My process is very much informed by archival research. I love going to archives and seeing what's been kind of relegated to folders, documents, or photographs, or artifacts. There's something there where I'll just gravitate to, trying to see if I can pay respect and have it be inclusive.
And you'll be seated over here?
Yeah. The Chung Collection, there's so many amazing things.
That's so cool.
I could do something like this. There's a catalog from a store around the 1920s full of illustrations of all the products that they were selling, the descriptions, what it's made out of, and the dimensions. It's just like very magical. I thought this actually would be really fun to produce sculptures based on these illustrations. Copying, it's actually a form of learning, the notion of authenticity.
Can things be hung from the ceiling?
I keep myself open.
My name is Janet Wang. I'm a visual artist and educator based in Vancouver, BC. Do a lot of digital illustration, drawing and painting, animation. My practice is very playful and engaging. I like to think of my artwork as a fictional journalism. What does it mean to be Chinese in Canada? What is my relationship to this more mythical sense of China?
Ooh, 1934, 50s or 60s. It says Glacier House in Great Glacier.
In the Chung Collection, to see some of these Art Deco style posters, the quality of the line and the gradients and the textures, we were just blown away whenever we opened up the folios.
Such a formula to the colors. The same blue for the background, the same red for the text.
How massive these posters were was just amazing. There's this idea of travel and movement and hope. The imagery is monumental.
Oh my gosh.
The Chinese were completely erased from a lot of this imagery, even though they were there working on those steamships, building the railways. Now we're going to be placing that viewer as that main character, playing with the motifs and style of the Art Deco travel posters. The viewer will see images on the one wall, a reflection on the other, and imagining themselves as part of this. And there will be a sense of hopefully discovery and immersion.
Water basin. Fish hook. Soup bowl. I'm Howie Tsui. I'm a visual artist. ink brush painting, animated media work, printing, sculpture. Asian motif on a white body. I don't know what this is. That notch is interesting. I have an obsession figuring a way to reanimate historical artifacts, media, traditions, capture what it's supposed to be. No, it wouldn't be. Oh, this? Oh yeah, you're right.
Oh my goodness.
Cool. Feel like you need to almost know what something is before you can start playing around with it. The magic lantern projector. Have you tried to plug this in? Opening little doors and loosening things and handling as if it was a tool that I wanted to learn more about. Socialite scene on English Bay. This is formally cool. It's more like a painting than a photo. We are in the final throes of installation. These rocks anchor this mountainscape, a response to some of the magic lantern projector slides of the Rocky Mountains. Sometimes my work could feel like a time machine. I try to dissolve all these historical boundaries between different eras. It's the site of the last spike. I always imagined it being larger. So I've integrated bones, railroad spikes to speak about the symbol of oppression. When railroad laborers died from the dangerous work, they would be buried at that site. Looks like ivory. I wanted to incorporate inscriptions and engravings of mahjong tiles. My family immigrated to Canada, and we didn't have a really large Chinese-Canadian community. Often just played mahjong at home. It has a lot of personal meaning as a way of existing in a distant place, but feeling connected.
My name is Morris Lum. The medium that I work with is photography, and I'm interested in the idea around representation, how it is that we sort of understand ourselves through the photograph.
It's like one of the officers. Here are the Chinese laborers. There's straw hats. Looks like it's off the Titanic or something.
Dr. Chung collected a lot of things. There's objects, there's documents. I was really interested in thinking about the history of the Chinese on the West Coast, thinking about how do we represent ourselves, but also presenting a way of dignifying ourselves. I came across the photographer C.B. Wang. Studio photographs, Chinese laborers, family portraits, an opening of a restaurant, also a soccer team. The portraits are very posed, having that large format camera. To take a portrait of someone would take basically the whole day.
Oh yeah, look at this. This is fantastic stuff.
I'm thinking about collecting various images that CB had taken and to piece together a story of a photographer that really understands the history of the community from the perspective of being within the community.
I'm really interested in this crest. So much like personality in some of these details.
A lot of the photographs come in these placards, signets of CB Wang's studio. Thinking about scanning the entirety of that, allow the viewer to be able to see the little details. It gives a different sense of how things are cherished because of people like CB Wang.
My name is Chih-Chien Wang. I'm a visual artist. I mostly work with photography, video, installation. Making art is mostly about one person's thoughts, one person's will.
Beautiful. Okay.
It took me a little while to figure out who I am in relation to this collection. As a first-generation immigrant, there's always this kind of uncertainty in terms of identity. Looking at people's story is always touching. Imagining how they live in the past, their struggle, their way. I was looking at the Ip's family tree, started to think who they are in terms of identity, self-presentation, to imagine stories. I was also looking at a life jacket, trying to imagine who is using it and who had no access. A kind of symbolic reading into the objects to make connection to our current day lives. Thinking of how we see ourselves and to think of life in a different way.
My name is Stella Zheng. I was born in Vancouver and I'm an illustrator. I like to make work that I think my kid self would enjoy seeing. I like to be very colorful and bright, focus on playfulness, joy. I also make work about my Chinese heritage. To take traditional Chinese motifs, materials like ink and brushwork, mix that in with digital, kind of get a more contemporary feel. I'm the kind of person that likes to include anything and everything I can into my artwork. Having a project where I have to include as much as I possibly can into one piece is perfect for me, I think. My drawing, a made-up museum space in isometric perspective. There's no size differentiation between things that are close to the viewer's eye and things that are far away. Creates like an endless space that the figures in the drawing are moving in and out of. A lot of traditional Chinese paintings use isometric perspective as a way to capture movement and passage of time. I wanted to emphasize the fact that this collection is incredibly expansive and thorough. The illustration is kind of like a game to try to find different artifacts. I've also included the artists that are participating. Oh yes, and Dr. Chung, of course! Keep an eye out.
The Chung Collection, these artifacts highlight how important our history and our story is.
What does it mean to be Chinese in Canada? As a visitor myself to a museum, do I see my identity reflected?
There are institutional archives and collections, but it's not to this extent.
So grateful to see this collection and the care that was given. Archiving these images, you do need to experience things in person. There's this like very immediate, intimate connection that you have with it. I think is very important.
I hope people become excited to learn about our history. There are so many things to learn about. There are so many stories to be told. Capturing history, creating history.